starting to provide a bit less detail now and to look at a more general perspective. You have seen quite different examples, and I'm afraid everybody of you now knows exactly what to do with her or his contract, right? Or are you already a little bit confused? Well, to say just 2 words to KCW. KCW is a specialized consultancy working exclusively for public transport authorities at all levels of administration, European Commission to local municipalities. So my view is looking at experience across Europe from more than 20 years experience with public service contracts and a lot of learning along this period of time. So the questions are, well, which are the quantifiable targets that should be used in public service contracts? So which ones? Are these the more than 100 key performance indicators that François mentioned a bit earlier? And if not, which one out of these 100 or more indicators should you use then? So there's one assumption. First of it is there's a contract. This contract is concluded between an authority and an operator. So we are dealing with stipulations that say what the authority wants the operator to do. Okay, but the persons who this is relevant for are not in the contract, that these are the passengers. So again, it's not everything you can measure and that could be interesting would be relevant for the passengers. So you would have to look at what are the key indicators that you need to provide a good service to the passengers or to the citizens. And the second question, of course, is how can these targets be monitored in an efficient way? So of course, everything can be quantified in some way. And if you have 100 targets, from cleanliness of the windows of your bus to cleanliness of the floor at the start of the operation in the morning and in the afternoon, of course you can measure that. But how big is the cost of monitoring if you do all of that? So what is relevant and how can you monitor these criteria, these targets efficiently? That's the key questions. So what I want to do with you is look how this could work. So first view in it is what are your targets? What do you want to achieve with your public transport service? You're not monitoring just because you can monitor, but because you want to achieve something. First, you will probably look at is performance. Are the operations in line with the service that is in the contract, in the public service contract? Okay, but what do you set there? Usually you want to have a good service performance that should be achieved. So what is this good service? This can be availability. So are the service running at all? Are they punctual? But as well, are the buses clean? Is passenger information on a good level? Are the drivers friendly to the passengers? Is the driving style okay? How is it be dealt with if you have congestion and so on? So you have a lot of criteria. Which ones are you looking at? Beat already was putting in some doubt about more than 30 indicators, and I will do as well. So just imagine if you have a 1,000-page contract, and you get, as the operator, as the managing director of an operator company, you get into your office in the morning. What will you do? First thing, open up the folder, read all 1,000 pages, think about all 30-plus criteria. You won't. You will do what you will have read all these sheets of paper, or most of them, when you created your bid. And after that, this folder will be in the drawer, deep in the drawer, and you will do your daily operations. And as Beat as well said, well, probably this folder will be made up by a bid team, creating a wonderful document explaining how wonderfully you will provide these services. But then there will be the operational manager, a mean economist, who will look at profit and at figures, not at the wonderful bit that has been created once for the evaluation of the bits. So what are you dealing with as an operational manager? That's what you can keep in mind for daily operations. That's what you can explain to your dispatcher, to your drivers. So that's a small set of key criteria. So what you're focusing at is mainly and what you have to focus at is mainly the basic needs of the passengers, and at the same time, as the authority, the main cost drivers for the operator that you entrust with the services. So the main cost drivers, how many vehicles do you have to buy? So if there is 100 buses there, these buses will get into operation. So that's quite important to have an indicator covering that. How much capacity, how much staff, and how are your processes set up? That's the key cost drivers that you have at the very beginning when you start the operation. That's then running practice. That's what you get started with, is mainly what you will have all over the contract. So that's investment cost and expectation, which kind of processes will have to be sustained during the operation. So for me, the main issues to be covered by these indicators is what is driving the cost and what is really relevant for the passengers. So that's availability, reliability, and punctuality, or if you're not measuring punctuality against a predefined timetable, rather regularity. It's the British example of the excess waiting times, which is working in bigger cities. It's the capacity and it's the vehicles or rolling stock that has to be purchased. And of course, this has to be enforced. So just because it's in the contract, there must be incentives. And in this case, it's mainly financial incentives. And these financial incentives have to be in a dimension. So it's really necessary to do the investment to sustain the resources. So if you don't run the service, there's a good example in Germany. If you don't run the service, there's no remuneration. So you're not covering even your capital cost for the train or the bus that has been run. So that's very few indicators. That's not 100. How about cleanliness? How about safety then? Okay, how would you define clean buses? It's anyway quite difficult. What is the expectations of the commuters in the morning? What is the expectations of the visitors of the theater in the evening? Is that the same? So that's something you know probably 10 years in advance. Or we have a very good example, passenger information. If you have a contract that is 10 years old, what would this contract include about passenger information? There's nothing about smartphone apps, nothing about Facebook, nothing about Twitter, almost nothing about real-time information. So technical measures and needs of customers or requirements of customers are changing over time. So probably you don't need something different, not a static, predefined obligation and an indicator measuring whether you are compliant with this indicator, but processes. So what you need is, on one hand, an adequate reaction to deficiencies. So if the drivers are not friendly, you can't describe everything that can happen over the next 10 years. But you can describe the process. If the drivers are not friendly, how the operator has to deal with that. And how the cooperation continues between the authority and the operator. That's the most relevant point. And within this cooperation, how the service will be developed over time. So introduction of smartphone apps, real-time information, application of providing information on Google, on Facebook, on Twitter. All these things have to be implemented during the lifetime of the contract. And what will come over the next 10 years? Nobody knows. So, of course, this is something that has to be done. So how do you safeguard that these processes are working properly? So you need some kind of indicators for good processes. So that's pretty difficult. There's something that you can't describe in advance, and you want it to work properly. So it's about, does this process work properly? And that's something that you can't describe in advance, but backwards. So what we really like is one indicator that has been implemented in a couple contracts in the Netherlands and in Germany. Meanwhile, that there's an assessment of the overall satisfaction of the public transport authority with the process management for the year that has passed. So that's very interesting. That's providing two things. One thing is you're always in the discussion with the operator. So the operator is really interested in doing the things that the authority wants to get, and it's flexible, it's dynamic. So it's discussing about, did you react to the problem with the unfriendly drivers? Did you react to the dirty buses? Did you find solutions for better passenger information? All these things are within these processes. And of course this costs effort, so there should be an incentive as well. And at that point, we are on the one hand within the non-financial incentives. So first thing is, if there is something going wrong, you ask the operator to show up and to explain why this has gone wrong and what he is going to do about the improvement or the removal of the deficiencies. So that's first step. So you're discussing, and that can be quite nasty. And if this doesn't work, you're asking the managing director to show up, maybe to show up in the council. So that's providing effort and cost for the operator, and they're quite interested in doing something about it, so the managing director doesn't have to show up every month in the council and having nasty discussions. That's one thing. So that's about reputation and about effort. And second thing is that, of course, you can add a financial or non-financial, well, I'd rather add a financial incentive like a bonus. We have examples where we have an every year bonus. If overall satisfaction is good, the operator gets a bonus. Or the other thing that is wider implemented is that an extension of the contract can be given only on the basis, or has to be given only on the basis that the overall satisfaction with the process has been good in the first 5 or 7 years of the contract. So this might give you an extra 2 years of the contract. This is a strong financial incentive. So so now you have a flexible instrument to deal with all these things that you don't know in advance, and to deal with the problems that exist. So you don't need to describe every potential problem that might show up and have a monitoring for huge monitoring for every potential thing that could happen. But you just react. If there's something going wrong, you react, you discuss with the operator, you improve the service. The other way could be, I think, Emanuele, you said self-fulfilling incentive. So the other way could be using success indicators. So do you have higher level of patronage? Do you have more fair revenue? I like these success indicators because if they are related to financial incentive, of course the operator has a strong own interest in creating the success, and this will help to sustain these processes that you need. But this is not feasible in all situations. If you have one route in downtown Copenhagen, there's a lot of other routes, so how would you say which of the passengers have been there because you had a perfect service, or missed because the other operators didn't have a perfect service? Which ones are related to congestions? Which ones are just windfall profit because of an urban development? So that does not work in every case. But if you have a larger region, you can do that, or a larger rail network like like the rail concessions in the UK. There's success indicators that work that are related to fair revenue or to patronage. So third one could be customer satisfaction with the same restriction what the operator needs in order to have these incentives working is design freedom and control over the factors that influence customer satisfaction, fair revenue, or patronage. Okay, that was the overview. You will get the presentation. I can send it to you, so don't worry about that. So that was a very rough overview. So I have some remarks to make on that. First remark, please be aware that there's no one and only solution. That these are principles, but there are local conditions you have to take into account, and your local situation will be different from this draft model. So, irrespective of which indicators you use in your contract to steer the fulfillment of the contract, you must know more about. You must know what performance is there. But what you select must fit the contract objectives. So if you want to have more passengers, you should select the right indicators. If you want, which is in some Central European countries the main concern, if you just want the service to be operated and to be there and there's nothing else, that's the key focus then. You need, in any case, good performance data, because if you're in the discussion with the operator, somebody should have good data whether the buses are clean or not. It's not just guessing or hoping. The most important things are, in my opinion, those that relate to both parties. So what is necessary is that both parties understand the contract in the same way. If it's in the drawer and this will develop, he will have a different understanding than La Région Rhône-Alpes or whoever is his contractor. So you need to talk to each other and to sustain the same understanding of the contract, because if not, you won't get the outcome that you want to. And this is a learning process, and there has been a lot of learning across Europe over the last 20 years, and it's ongoing. There's no perfect contract so far. So what I really recommend is to evaluate what you have got, and then to further develop your contracts. Be aware that it's local, that has its own cultural things. Like in Switzerland, you can't use a Swiss contract in Germany. Unfortunately, they're nice, but they wouldn't work in Germany. And after all, the most important thing, to my opinion, is I've seen a lot of different contracts all over Europe.